Papoose is not being cancelled by his enemies. Papoose is being cancelled by his own phone camera, his own body language, and his own 3-year refusal to sign a piece of paper that any grown man in his position would have signed the second the ink was offered. And I need you to sit with that sentence for a second, because what is happening between Papoose, Remy Ma, and Claressa Shields in the summer of 2026 is not a story about a pool. It is not a story about a resort. It is not even really a story about a 2-time Olympic gold medalist calling somebody her hubby on a public feed, while that man is legally still tied to one of the most respected female MCs in New York history. What we are watching, in real time, is the collapse of a 2-decade brand identity, and the man who built that brand is the same man who lit the match. Everything you thought you knew about this marriage has been framed around the wrong question the entire time. The right question is not who left who. The right question is why the paperwork was never signed. And when we get to the New Jersey filing breakdown later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand why every move Papoose has made since May of 2025, when he publicly announced he had filed and started throwing affair allegations at Remy Ma, was never really about love, never really about Claressa Shields, and never really about closure. It was about something much, much colder. Personally, his career is imploding. Culturally, the entire hip-hop internet is finally admitting Remy told us the truth on wax over a year ago. Systemically, there is a legal marriage still sitting inside the New Jersey court system with unresolved assets, unresolved obligations, and a receipts drawer that just got fatter by another 30 seconds of poolside footage. Remy Ma is not in the room. Remy Ma is glowing. Remy Ma is 3 moves ahead of a man who has been playing checkers on a chessboard she set up years ago. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me orient everybody, because there are people watching this video right now who only caught the meme, only caught the caption, only caught the Shade Room repost, and they do not have the full context of who these 3 people are and why this specific situation is hitting the culture the way it is hitting. Papoose, real name Shamil Mackey, is a Brooklyn lyricist who spent the entire 2000s being called one of the most technically gifted rappers to never break through to the mainstream. He had bars. He had mixtapes. He had cosigns from some of the most respected veterans in the game. What Papoose did not have was a platinum single, a signature hit, or a career trajectory that broke past the hardcore lyricist niche. And then Papoose married Remy Ma. Remy Ma, real name Reminisce Mackey, is one of the most decorated, most respected, and most feared female MCs in the history of New York rap. She came up under Big Pun. She held her own on Terror Squad Records when Terror Squad was one of the most dominant crews in the industry. She survived a federal prison sentence. She came home and immediately re-established herself. She went bar for bar with one of the biggest female rappers alive and walked out of that beef with her reputation intact and her respect elevated. Remy Ma is not a supporting character. Remy Ma is the lead of any story she walks into. And when she married Papoose, Papoose overnight went from being a niche lyricist to being the husband of a hip-hop icon. That marriage gave him his reality show run. That marriage gave him mainstream visibility. That marriage put him in rooms his mixtapes alone were never going to get him into. Then enters Claressa Shields, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a world champion in 3 separate weight classes, a woman who has been in the public eye since she was a teenager, and who, in the summer of 2025, started calling Papoose her hubby on a public Instagram feed while Papoose was still, according to every credible outlet from the Shade Room to Vibe to the Griot, legally married to Remy Ma. And now, in 2026, over a year after Papoose publicly filed and started slinging affair allegations, over a year after Remy Ma offered on Instagram Live to pay for his lawyer if the money was the reason he was dragging his feet, that divorce is still sitting inside the New Jersey court system awaiting finalization. Nothing about this is normal. Nothing about this is casual. And the stakes here are personal, cultural, financial, and legal all at the same time. Personally, Papoose is watching a brand he spent nearly 2 decades building implode on somebody else's phone. Culturally, the hip-hop community is finally being forced to admit that Remy Ma was telling the truth about this man on wax over a year ago and the culture laughed at her for it. Financially, there is a legal marriage in New Jersey with unresolved assets, unresolved royalty streams, unresolved reality show residuals, and unresolved brand obligations that grow more expensive to untangle every day Papoose sits on the paperwork. And reputationally, Papoose is 1 filing, 1 court date, 1 FOIA request away from a Tuesday morning he is not prepared for. So the question I want you to sit with as we walk through the rest of this video is not is Papoose wrong? The question is how did Papoose think this was going to end? Let me start with the surface evidence because before we get into the industry-level breakdown, before we get into the legal analysis, before we walk into the state of New Jersey filing system, we have to walk through what everybody has already seen with their own 2 eyes. And the first piece of surface evidence is the video itself. The poolside video that Claressa Shields posted, the video that Big Keys amplified, the video that has been reposted, screenshotted, memed, and forensically analyzed across every platform in America since it dropped. In that video, Papoose is not sitting. Papoose is not standing. Papoose is stretched out poolside in a pose that anybody who has ever spent more than 4 hours on rap Twitter immediately recognized as a callback to a very specific verse Remy Ma dropped over a year ago. That pose is not accidental. That pose is not random. That pose is a receipt. And the fact that Claressa Shields chose to film Papoose from that specific angle, in that specific position, and then post it to a public feed for millions of followers, tells you everything about what she was doing. Because Claressa Shields is a strategist. Two-time Olympic gold medalists do not stumble into decisions. World champions in 3 weight classes do not throw wild punches. Champions plan their shots. And whether Claressa realized the full weight of it or not, she landed a shot that is going to reverberate through this culture for years. The second piece of surface evidence is the caption. And the caption is where this goes from a video to a full-blown situation. Because Claressa Shields, on July of 2025, on a public Instagram feed with millions of followers, wrote, and I am quoting from what was reposted across every hip-hop blog in America, "Thank you to my man Papoose, you are the epitome of a good man." And then, in follow-up posts, she called him her hubby. On a public feed. In defiance of a legal marriage that has still not been dissolved by the New Jersey court system a full year later. Calling somebody your hubby is not a joke. Calling somebody your hubby is not a slip of the thumb. Calling somebody your hubby is a claim. It is a flag planted in territory that, legally, on paper, in the state of New Jersey, still belongs to Remy Ma. And Claressa either knew exactly what she was doing when she typed that word, or she is operating under a level of delusion that no boxing coach in the world can train out of a person. The third piece of surface evidence is Remy Ma's own timeline that same weekend. Because while Papoose was poolside with Claressa, Remy Ma was at a birthday celebration surrounded by her real community. She showed up glowing. She showed up iced out. She showed up hugging fans, hugging babies, taking pictures, radiating the exact kind of quiet dignity that makes an entire internet immediately choose sides. There was no clapback post. There was no subliminal Instagram story. There was no cryptic caption. There was just Remy Ma being celebrated, in the exact moment her legal husband was embarrassing himself on somebody else's phone. The contrast between those two feeds, Papoose stretched out, Remy Ma glowing, is the single most damaging piece of visual storytelling in this entire situation. And it happened without Remy Ma lifting a single finger. That, family, is what winning without swinging looks like. The fourth piece of surface evidence is the record. Remy Ma did not stay quiet forever. Remy Ma dropped a freestyle called W.Y.F.L, What You Fighting Love, and she buried both of them on wax without ever raising her voice. Reaction videos to that freestyle pulled in over 160,000 views on YouTube in the first few weeks alone. The Shade Room reported on it. The Griot reported on it. WDKX reported that social media widely believed Claressa Shields had subtweeted a response about not stirring the pot. And then, as reported by Yahoo Entertainment, a fake video circulated claiming Claressa Shields had physically fought Remy Ma, which Remy herself had to publicly debunk. That is how deep into the culture this situation has burrowed. There are people making fake fight videos about it. There are reaction channels building entire content lanes around it. And through all of it, Remy Ma has done the one thing Papoose cannot seem to do. She has stayed on the record, on wax, in her own voice, with her own bars, refusing to give the internet a meltdown moment. The fifth piece of surface evidence, and the one that ties this whole opening section together, is the silence. Papoose, a man who has built an entire brand on being the last one to leave the microphone, a man who has freestyled through news cycles and rapped over headlines and turned every controversy into a bar, has largely gone quiet on the substance of this. He has done interviews. He has thrown allegations. But he has not produced the one thing that would end this conversation, a finalized divorce decree from the New Jersey Superior Court. And silence, family, in a situation like this, is never neutral. Silence is confession. Silence is a man knowing that there is no bar he can spit that fixes what the footage already showed and the paperwork still has not resolved. The fact that his answer to being clocked poolside has been anything but a final judgment on paper tells you everything you need to know about how bad the internal situation actually is. And oh, do I have more for you? Because if you thought the surface stuff was damaging, if you thought the pool video was the ceiling of the situation, if you thought the caption was the worst of it, you are not ready for what the culture is quietly confirming behind the scenes. The Papoose fans in the comments are really not going to like this next part, but somebody has to say it out loud, and today, on this channel, we are saying it. There is a specific pattern in how other women in hip-hop have been responding, there is a specific reason Big Key's commentary went viral instead of just circulating, and there is a specific name in Remy Ma's freestyle catalog that lines up with the poolside footage in a way that even the most loyal Papoose supporters cannot argue their way out of. Stay with me because we are about to shift from what the internet saw to what the community is quietly confirming, and by the time we get to the New Jersey filing breakdown, you are going to understand that this situation is not just embarrassing. It is legally combustible. Let's talk about the cultural evidence, because this is where the story shifts from a viral moment into a full-blown cultural reckoning. The first piece of cultural evidence is the resurfacing of Remy Ma's own bars. Over a year ago, on record, on a verse that had already been picked apart by hip-hop reaction channels, Remy Ma described a very specific set of behaviors, a very specific posture, a very specific dynamic that she said Papoose exhibited in private. At the time, the culture dismissed those bars as a scorned wife being petty. The culture laughed. The culture said Remy was exaggerating. The culture said this was what women do when they feel wronged. And now, in the summer of 2026, that same culture is watching Papoose stretched out poolside in a pose that lines up with Remy Ma's lyrics so precisely that even his own supporters have gone quiet. Remy Ma was not exaggerating. Remy Ma was auditing. Remy Ma was submitting evidence in advance. And every commentator, myself included in the culture at large, who mocked her for those bars owes her an apology today. The second piece of cultural evidence is Big Keys, and I want to give Big Keys his flowers on this channel right now, because Big Keys did in a phone video what most mainstream hip-hop journalism refuses to do. Big Keys did not just point at the pool footage and laugh. Big Keys did forensic analysis from his living room. He clocked the pose. He clocked the caption. He clocked the legal situation. He asked the one question that mainstream outlets tiptoed around. Does the state of New Jersey know about this? Big Keys turned a phone into a courtroom. And the reason his video went viral is not because he was being mean. The reason it went viral is because he was being accurate. Accuracy is the rarest currency on this internet right now, and Big Keys is out here minting coins while networks are still trying to figure out how to talk about hip-hop without offending sponsors. That is the difference between commentary and content. Commentary tells you what happened. Content tells you what to think. And Big Keys, in a living room, with a phone, delivered commentary sharper than 3 months of legacy media coverage combined. The third piece of cultural evidence is the comment section reaction across every platform. And I need you to understand how significant this is, because normally, in a situation like this, you get camps. You get the Papoose fans defending. You get the Remy Ma fans attacking. You get the neutral crowd staying out of it. This time, the reaction has been shockingly unified. Papoose supporters are not defending him. Papoose supporters are quiet. Papoose supporters are, in some cases, actively distancing themselves from him. That level of consensus across a fan base that is normally combative is not normal. It tells you the footage, combined with the timeline, crossed a line that even the most loyal fans cannot argue past. When your own people go silent, you are in a different kind of trouble than public backlash. You are in the kind of trouble that ends careers quietly, without a press release, without a farewell tour, without a moment to say goodbye. You just look up one day and the room is empty. The fourth piece of cultural evidence, and I need you to really sit with this one, is the way other women in hip-hop have been responding. Not with posts. Not with statements. With likes. With shares. With subtle reposts of Remy Ma's old verses. With Instagram stories celebrating her birthday content and her freestyles. With quiet, coordinated, community-level acknowledgement that Remy Ma has been telling the truth this whole time and the culture is finally catching up. This is what solidarity looks like when it does not need to announce itself. This is what the sisterhood of hip-hop looks like when one of its most respected members is being publicly disrespected by the man she vouched for. And I want to acknowledge something right here, because I know some of you are going to say, hey, these are grown adults, this is their private situation, we should stay out of it. And I hear you. I understand that argument. But here is the counter-argument, and it is the one that ends the conversation. When you put your life on a public feed, when you call somebody your hubby on Instagram in front of millions, when you announce a divorce filing to the media before you announce it to the court, when you spend a decade on reality television, you do not get to opt out of public commentary when the feed goes bad. That is the deal. That is the contract. Papoose has been on reality television for over a decade. Claressa Shields has been in the public eye since she was a teenager. They made this our business the moment they hit post. So spare me the "it is their business" defense. It does not hold water when the water is a resort pool being filmed for the entire internet. The fifth piece of cultural evidence is the freestyle response itself. W.Y.F.L was not a subliminal. W.Y.F.L was not a cryptic caption. W.Y.F.L was Remy Ma, on record, in her own voice, addressing the situation with the exact kind of surgical precision that made her one of the most feared MCs in New York in the first place. And the culture responded. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. Reaction mashups pulled hundreds of thousands of views. The Shade Room ran multiple posts about it. The Griot quoted from it. Even Claressa Shields, according to WDKX and multiple hip-hop blogs, appear to respond to it on social media with a message about not stirring the pot, which, and let us be very clear here, is the response of somebody who felt the bars connect. You do not tell people to stop stirring the pot if the pot is not already boiling on your stove. The culture, quietly, without saying it out loud, has already delivered its verdict. Papoose lost the court of public opinion before the actual court has even scheduled his next hearing. And that leads us into a much bigger conversation, because the court of public opinion is not the only court that matters here. There is a real court, in a real state, with a real filing system. And that filing system is where this story is about to get very, very uncomfortable. Now let me shift gears, because everything we have talked about up to this point has been about what happened on camera and what the culture is saying about it. But underneath the memes, underneath the jokes, underneath Big Key's living room commentary, there is a legal, financial, and structural reality that nobody is discussing with the seriousness it deserves. And this is where this channel goes further than most of the reaction content you are going to find on this situation. Because the real story here is not about Papoose being embarrassed poolside. The real story is about what happens when a legally married man performs the role of a partner with someone else in public while his actual marriage sits unresolved inside a state court system. And there are 3 separate systemic layers to this that I need to walk you through, because each one carries its own consequences, and together they explain exactly why Papoose has been dragging his feet on this paperwork since May of 2025. The first systemic layer is the legal one. In the state of New Jersey, divorce decrees are handled through the Superior Court of New Jersey Record Center, and every credible outlet, the Shade Room, Vibe, the Griot, multiple Instagram legal commentary accounts, has confirmed that as of Remy Ma's own Instagram Live in 2025, and as of every follow-up report through 2026, the divorce is still awaiting finalization. Papoose publicly announced in May of 2025 that he had filed, and he attached allegations of infidelity against Remy Ma to that announcement. Remy Ma has publicly disputed those allegations. And here is where it gets legally interesting, because in New Jersey, and in almost every state in this country, the public performance of a new romantic partnership while your existing marriage is still open in court creates evidentiary risk in any contested divorce proceeding. Every time Claressa Shields posts a video, every time Papoose appears in public with her, every time the two of them perform partnership on camera, that footage becomes potential evidence. It creates risk around asset division. It creates risk around any allegations of infidelity that Papoose himself has raised, because a court can and will look at conduct on both sides. It creates risk around any settlement negotiation. And Remy Ma's legal team, and let us be absolutely clear, Remy Ma has a legal team, because a woman who publicly offered on Instagram Live to pay for her ex's lawyer is a woman with a lawyer of her own, is not sleeping on any of this. Her team is documenting. Her team is archiving. Her team is building a file. And that file is going to be very, very interesting reading whenever this hits a courtroom for real. The second systemic layer is the financial one, and this is where the story really opens up. Because when people talk about the Papoose and Remy Ma marriage, they usually talk about it in emotional terms. But a 16-year marriage, in the entertainment industry, between 2 working artists, is not just a relationship. It is a financial partnership. There are joint assets. There are joint properties. There are potentially joint business interests. There are royalty streams, publishing catalogs, likeness rights, brand deals, reality show residuals from years of love and hip-hop appearances, and every single one of those has to be untangled in a divorce. Which means every day Papoose delays finalization, every day he lets that marriage sit in limbo, is a day the financial complexity of the eventual settlement gets more expensive, not less. And I have been saying this on this channel for a long time. When a divorce is being slow-rolled by one party, 90% of the time it is being slow-rolled because that party believes the delay benefits them financially. Remy Ma said the quiet part out loud, on Instagram Live, as reported by the Griot in May of 2025, she offered to pay Papoose's lawyer fees because she believed he was intentionally dragging the proceedings. Run out the clock. Let the other person get tired. Hope for a default that lands in your favor. But here is the thing about that strategy. It only works if the other person is desperate for it to end. And Remy Ma is not desperate. Remy Ma is not chasing. Remy Ma is not begging. Remy Ma is glowing at a birthday party, dropping freestyles, and offering to fund her own opponent's legal defense while Papoose exposes himself, literally, on somebody else's phone. Remy Ma has all the time in the world. Papoose is the one running out of runway. The third systemic layer is the reputational one, and this is the one that is going to sink his career in slow motion. Because in the hip-hop industry, there is a very specific kind of currency that Papoose has always traded on: the loyal husband, the family man, the guy who stood by his wife through federal prison, through public battles, through re-entry, through the reality show years. That was his brand. That was the identity that gave him crossover appeal beyond his mixtape lyricism. That was what booked him on morning shows, on reality television, on podcast circuits where his rap catalog alone would not have gotten him a chair. And now, in one poolside video and one Instagram caption, that entire brand identity has been vaporized. There is no going back from what that video showed the culture. There is no press release that undoes it. There is no interview that reframes it. Papoose spent almost 2 decades building a reputation as the loyal one, and he demolished it in 30 seconds. The industry, the actual industry, the bookers, the showrunners, the podcast producers, the label executives, the reality television developers, they are watching this. They are recalculating. They are quietly deciding whether the Papoose brand is still safe to associate with. And that recalculation happens without any announcement, without any public statement, without any confirmation. It just happens. And one day, Papoose is going to look up and notice that the calls have stopped coming, and he is not going to be able to point to the exact moment it changed. But we can point to it. It was the moment he stretched out poolside and let Claressa Shields press the record button. It was the moment he chose to announce a divorce filing to the media in May of 2025 before he chose to actually finalize it in court. It was the moment he decided that being publicly linked to a 2-time Olympic gold medalist was worth more than being publicly known as the man who stood by Remy Ma. And he made all 3 of those decisions himself. Nobody made them for him. And here is where these 3 systemic layers come together into one devastating truth. The legal, financial, and reputational consequences of the last 3 years of Papoose's decisions are not going to hit him separately. They are going to hit him all at once. And when they hit, the man is not going to have the infrastructure to absorb the impact. Because the infrastructure that would have absorbed it, the marriage, the co-signed brand identity, the shared platform, is the exact infrastructure he chose to blow up. Papoose walked away from the only structure that was protecting him, and he walked into a situation where every mistake compounds. That is not strategy. That is not a plan. That is a man who was never really thinking 3 moves ahead and is about to discover that the game he thought he was winning has been running on somebody else's board the entire time. Now let me deliver what I think is the most important truth of this entire video, and I need you to be locked in for this, because everything we have discussed up to this point has been building toward this specific reveal. The truth is this: Papoose did not lose Remy Ma because he found Claressa Shields. Papoose lost Remy Ma long before Claressa Shields entered the picture, and everything since then has been performance. The pool video is not the crime. The pool video is the confession. Because a man who was actually finished with a marriage would have signed the papers, closed the chapter, and moved on with dignity. A man who was actually finished would not still be legally attached over a year after publicly announcing a filing. A man who was actually finished would not have needed his estranged wife to publicly offer to pay for his lawyer on Instagram Live because he was allegedly slow-rolling the process. A man who was actually finished would not be running out a clock on a settlement. He could have concluded any time he wanted to. Papoose has kept himself legally attached to Remy Ma because that legal attachment has value to him. It has financial value. It has reputational value. It has strategic value. And here is the allegation that the internet has been dancing around, but nobody has said cleanly on camera. Papoose has allegedly been leveraging the ambiguity of this marriage to protect assets, to shape the eventual settlement, and to keep public sympathy tilted in his direction by framing himself as the one who filed while quietly refusing to finalize. That is what the pattern suggests. That is what the timing suggests. That is what the silence between the filing announcement and the final decree suggests. And Remy Ma, brilliantly, patiently, has been letting that strategy play out because she knew, that eventually Papoose would do something stupid enough on camera to collapse the entire performance. And that is exactly what happened. Papoose collapsed his own strategy poolside. Papoose handed Remy Ma the exact piece of footage her legal team has probably been waiting on for months. Papoose did not just embarrass himself. Papoose allegedly and materially damaged his own negotiating position in a divorce he had been publicly trying to control the terms of. That is the actual story. That is what the pool video represents. It is not a moment of freedom. It is the moment his own hands filed the paperwork he refused to file for over a year. And when this eventually reaches a final judgment in the New Jersey Superior Court, and it will, that footage, that caption, and every subsequent public appearance is going to be sitting in a folder that his ex-wife's legal team has been building since the day he first announced he had filed. Remy Ma did not have to lift a finger. She just had to wait. And she waited with more grace, more patience, and more strategic discipline than anybody in this culture recognized until right now. That is the truth bomb. That is the reveal. Papoose has been playing checkers on a chessboard Remy Ma set up years ago, and the game is just about done. And this brings us to Remy Ma, and I want to close this section by giving Remy Ma her flowers the way this culture has repeatedly failed to give them to her. Remy Ma is one of the greatest to ever hold a microphone in the state of New York, period. Remy Ma survived a federal prison sentence and came home to re-establish herself in an industry that writes women off for far less. Remy Ma raised children through incarceration, through re-entry, through reality television, through Papoose's own public embarrassments. Remy Ma stood by Papoose during the prison years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose during the industry lean years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose during the reality show chaos. Remy Ma gave Papoose a public marriage, a public family, a public brand, a public identity, and a career trajectory he never would have had on his own. And Papoose repaid Remy Ma by publicly announcing a filing with allegations attached, allegedly slow-rolling the actual finalization, moving on in public with a boxing champion who called him her hubby before the paperwork was even close to done, and refusing to legally close a chapter he emotionally left long ago. And Remy Ma's response to all of that has been to keep glowing, to keep working, to keep dropping bars, to offer on Instagram Live, to fund his lawyer if money was the issue, to let the receipts arrive on their own schedule. This is Remy Ma's Renaissance era. Not the pain era. Not the meltdown era. The era where she stopped explaining, stopped defending, and started winning quietly, on wax, with W.Y.F.L, with birthday photos, with community appearances, with a legal team that is patiently building a file. And the universe is delivering. Every day Papoose spends poolside is a day Remy Ma spends compounding. Every video Claressa Shields posts is a video Remy Ma's team archives. Every moment Papoose thinks he is escaping is a moment he is actually sinking deeper. This is what quiet winning looks like. This is what strategic dignity looks like. This is what happens when a woman with real range decides that the best response is no response at all, because she knows the receipts are coming, and she knows the receipts always come. One person built a career on freestyles, mixtapes, and marrying up. The other survived federal prison, rebuilt her name from scratch, and outlasted every scandal that touched her. That is the difference between Papoose and Remy Ma. That has always been the difference. And now, finally, the culture is seeing it clearly. But make no mistake, this story is nowhere near over. This is only the start. Because there are at least two specific developments coming that I need every single one of you to be watching for. The first is the final divorce decree itself. That paperwork is coming. It is not a matter of if. It is a matter of when. And when that decree hits the New Jersey Superior Court record, when the specific findings on asset division and allegations become public, because New Jersey divorce decrees are accessible through the Superior Court Record Center, the pool video is going to look like a warm-up act compared to what enters the record. The second development to watch for is Remy Ma's next verse. Because Remy Ma is a rapper. Remy Ma is a lyricist. W.Y.F.L was not the finale. W.Y.F.L was a warning shot. Do you really think a woman who put Papoose's business on wax over a year ago, got vindicated by his own poolside footage, and offered to fund his lawyer on Instagram Live does not have another verse in the chamber? Do you really think she is not sitting on the next one right now, waiting for the exact right moment to detonate? I have a feeling, and this is speculation, but it is informed speculation. I have a feeling Remy Ma has at least one more song loaded, and when it drops, it is going to blow this entire situation open all over again. So if you want to be around when that lands, if you want to be in the room when the next chapter breaks, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Turn on the notifications. Because when the next verse drops, when the decree hits, when Claressa Shields' next caption lands, this channel is going to be first with the analysis. And on the next video, family, we are getting into something I do not think anybody is ready for, because there is a name that keeps surfacing in the background of this Papoose situation that ties directly to a much bigger conversation happening in New York hip-hop right now, and when I tell you who it is and what the connection actually reveals about the last 5 years of this culture, you are going to understand why the pool video was never really the main story. It was the door. And on the next one, we are walking through it. Stay glowing. Stay winning. Stay honest with your paperwork. I will talk to y'all real soon.